We have a major Rockets trade update as a new report reveals crucial details on the Rockets trade assets, along with how other teams in the NBA see and grade potential trade pieces from the Houston Rockets. Welcome into Rockets Digest. I'm Jace Andrews. Before we get going on the details, make sure you hit that subscribe button. There's going to be a lot of information coming at you this offseason, and we're going to be your first place for news, rumors. When that big trade happens, we're going to have a video on it. So hit the subscribe button to not miss anything happening with your H-Town team. Now, let's start here with a couple of interesting facts about the Rockets. Obviously, we know there is a lot of trade assets being available for this Houston Rockets team. They've got picks. They've got young stars that were drafted early that don't fit in the Rockets organization right now and could easily be shipped off for a trade. Well, now the problem is we're drinking the Rockets Kool-Aid. We have the Rockets glasses on. We're seeing this from, okay, Cam Whitmore is at least worth this, or Reed Sheppard's at least worth this. I mean, he was a first-round pick. But is that the way the NBA and the league and the GMs and all of those guys are seeing them? Well, we finally got our answer in that today as the league has come out and kind of, in some ways, ranked the way that they see these prospects going into the 2025 offseason. Guys like Cam Whitmore, Reed Sheppard, even Jabari Smith Jr., and a player that we'll talk about later on. But I digress. Let's start talking about the first one. That would be Cam Whitmore. And here's what Chris Party from Fansided says. Quote, Whitmore brings rare athleticism and slashing potential. In his second year as a pro, Whitmore averaged 9.4 points in 16.2 minutes per game on 44.4% shooting with several highlight dunks. Still, his skill set overlaps with Amen Thompson and Tari Eason, and his inconsistently limits his fit in Houston's offense, end quote. He's not wrong. I mean, obviously we think that Cam Whitmore is a pretty good prospect. Yes, he's still young. Obviously, the 1 year at Villanova and then here, there's not much to put the background on. But at the same time, the skill set's there. The talent is there. But it doesn't fit in this Rockets team right now, and especially when you compare him to the two people who are taking his quote-unquote position, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason. Those guys aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And so, Cam Whitmore, you're not the one playing. You're kind of in a similar situation as them. You're going to be the first one out the door. That's kind of the thing that I'm taking away from this. But how do NBA teams actually see Whitmore? Is that a guy that they would actually want? Well, the answer to that is actually a resounding yes. We continue on saying, quote, he's the type of prospect other franchises ask for in first negotiations. And the Rockets have enough size and athleticism at the forward to consider moving him for a proven star, end quote. Key words there. Proven star, and he is the first one that they are asking for in trade negotiations. So that tells me a couple of different things. First of all, Cam Whitmore is highly valued throughout the NBA, and he will be one that is probably the most likely to be moved this offseason if a trade does occur. The second thing, proven star. We've heard so much about Rafael Stone wanting to keep this team as together as possible, which makes me kind of think, okay, well, probably not going to trade away any of the big assets unless something just absolutely no way you can accept it trade comes in. But with Cam Whitmore, this seems like one that could be easily out the door on the first trade that happens as soon as the trade window's open. Like that could be a first thing out the door type thing. So would you want to see Cam Whitmore traded? Let me know down in the comments section, and let's continue on our trade assets. Reed Sheppard is the second guy I want to talk about. He's obviously a promising prospect. The big thing with him, I don't think he is like the number one piece. I don't think he's a guy that you're like, okay, here's him, and then what you want some picks behind him or not. I don't know if that's where Sheppard is. And we see this in what he said in the article, saying Sheppard has already shown why he went in the lottery. He started slowly bouncing between the G League and the main roster, but he's improved over time, playing with poise, and he was given more opportunities. He's valuable as a sweetener piece, a cost-effective, high-upside guard who can make a star deal palatable for a trade partner. Still, with Green, VanVleet, and Thompson ahead of him, Sheppard is less crucial to Houston's short-term plans. That's a very, very big thing because if you look at the guard position for the Houston Rockets, it's very much at a standstill with Reed Sheppard. You have VanVleet, and if he stays, obviously he's going to be your point guard next year. And if he doesn't stay, I would honestly think that the first trade they would even consider making would be Devin Booker. In that case, we're all speaking hypothetical here. Jalen Green is your shooting guard, and then Amen Thompson as the second point guard. Dylan Brooks is your second shooting guard. I mean, Reed Sheppard, it just doesn't have a place in the starting rotation here. Like, forget starting 5. He's not in the 10. Like, you're not coming off the bench that much. Reed Sheppard, in most of his time played this year, was more in garbage time scenarios. And the way that you kind of think about this, it's like, okay, well, you're not really going to see much from Reed Sheppard. I think that's the biggest thing, is he's not into the long-term integral plans for the Houston Rockets. And for that case scenario, trade him off. I mean, see what you can get. There's a lot of stuff that Reed Sheppard can do, and he is a highly touted prospect. He was a first-round pick. He was not just first-round pick, he was a high first-round pick. So, like, there was a lot of teams that are going to be knocking on the door saying, hey, we are so close to making this deal. How about you put Reed Sheppard, and we'll say yes. Like, that's kind of the piece that Reed Sheppard is you already have that trade manufactured. It's basically at the doorstep, and the team that you're trading with is like, okay, I think we're ready, but I really need one more piece. And that's where you say, okay, we're not going to use Reed Sheppard. Here you go. Take him. Trade is done in a matter of moments. And so that's a big thing to kind of look at in this instance and really just talk about in so many different aspects. But at the same time, this entire depth chart just shows me that Reed Sheppard is just not fitting with the Rockets. So that's the biggest thing, is he just doesn't fit the potential timeline of the Rockets, I guess I should say. Let's talk about the name that is a very valuable piece, not just to NBA organizations, but I think one of the more hard to trade away assets for the Houston Rockets, and that's Jabari Smith Jr., who is labeled as a valuable trade piece due to defensive versatility. And while I do agree with this, his defensive versatility is really, really good. His motion in the playoffs was very underrated. There was a lot of talk about how Jalen Green struggled. There was a lot of talk about Amen Thompson was good, but he was up and down, but Fred VanVleet was by far the best guy. But Jabari Smith was so consistent, being the sixth man off the bench, coming off. He would come in there, usually score double figures in the postseason. I mean, he was having a very good postseason compared to what you're expecting from him. And I felt like no one talked about it, obviously, because we lost. I mean, that's kind of the way it goes. When you lose, some positive things get lost in the ruffles. And that's kind of the biggest thing with this, is I don't want people to start looking at this team like, this guy didn't perform in the playoffs, when in reality, he did. It just didn't matter. And that's where we try and kind of continue on here with the quote saying, Smith brings real value through defense switchability, size, and steady three-point improvement over the past 2 years. He was a regular season starter before getting hurt, then settled into his role off the bench, averaging 12.2 points per game and 7 rebounds per game while contributing defensively, end quote. Jabari Smith was a certified starter for this Rockets organization. He was going to be the future. That was going to happen, and he got injured. And he came back, and I'm not going to say he wasn't the same, but he definitely wasn't the Jabari Smith that we saw, last year, being one of the top rebounders in the entire NBA, ranked 25th. And then you look at him this year, and yeah, he's still up there with the top guys in rebounding, but it just wasn't the same when he came back from injury. And you miss a lot of time because he was kind of in and out of that lineup for, I want to say, about a month and a half at a certain point. So coming back, you're as a basketball team, when you play 82 games and it's a effectively night in, night out contest, you got to move on when players get injured, and they did. And guess what? People improved. People played. And not to say that Jabari Smith lost his spot, because I don't think he lost his spot. I just think the Rockets had to kind of figure out their team without him. And ultimately, when he got back, it wasn't the same fit. And you're so close at that point to getting into fighting for the playoffs. I mean, that was when he came back January area. I mean, it might have been even later than that. So, I mean, you're in a battle for the Western Conference at that point, and it was so tightly contested that you got to keep the team going the way that it's best going. So, I think that's really just a big thing. Another quote here saying, however, with Alperen Şengün emerging as an offensive anchor and Smith's offensive skills still developing, Smith will be one of the most expendable players if the right deal arises. Other contenders will be attracted to Smith's age, contract, and ability to slide into most systems. That's the biggest thing with Jabari Smith to me, is his contract is great. It's not like you're going to have to pay him eventually. And I believe he's going to ask for some top tier money, which I think he's deserving of. But you also have to look at Jabari Smith as a guy who can play in so many systems, has been executed well at different levels of basketball. So as a trade asset, I think he's a hard one to give up because I do think if you are going to start trading players, Jabari Smith becomes that more important as your sixth man off the bench. And that's where the question arises, what does a trade detail? Is Jabari Smith going with him? If so, who's going to be the sixth man? Like, there's so many questions with that the trade would have to be right, I think, for him as well. That leads us to the final guy, Jaylen Green. And I don't want to trade him. Let's put that right out there. I do not think he should be moved. But if the right deal is in the table, I'm not going to say I'm not going to take it. I love Jalen Green. I think he is the future of the Rockets organization. But at the same time, there are pluses to trying to win now, and there are some negatives to it as well, and that's potentially giving way with some of your top guys. And so there's just so much to talk about with Jalen Green. Let's just get into it here. Basically, Green struggled in his first playoffs. We all know that. However, he showed that during the regular season that will negate if any team like the Bucks come calling in a trade, they're going to ask for Jalen Green if you want Giannis. Fans won't want to hear this, but if it comes down to getting rid of Şengün or Green for a superstar, it'll be Green packing his bags and heading for the exit, end quote. And that's where I bring you in. Let's say right now there is a trade on the table. You have to take it. First of all, you have to take it. Alperen Şengün, Cam Whitmore, and some picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Or Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, and some picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Who are you trading away? Are you trading away Cam? Or excuse me, are you trading away Jalen? Or are you trading away Alperen? Like, I think that's such an interesting question. I kind of agree. I think I'm trading away Jalen Green instead of Alperen Şengün, which is kind of crazy to say, especially how good Jalen Green has been. But Alperen's becoming a certified superstar, and I think Jalen Green is, but there's just a level of difference in play at times, and Alperen is more consistent in my mind, and so that's where the question comes in. What would y'all think about that? And so I do want to look at his stats here. 21 points per game, 4.6 rebounds per game. He's 23 years old, guys. I mean, he is so young and has so much time and so much more time to develop. Him and Şengün both have contracts with the Rockets to stay here for a little bit, so it's very much a piece that would be so hard to give up. But at the same time, if the Bucks come calling and say, here's Giannis, it's a hard no to say that. And, you have picks as well that I wanted to show here real quick. You got a bunch of picks that could easily be entered into a trade here. But the point of this is the NBA values the Rockets as the top trade team in the 2025 offseason. They have young people that they are not using that teams are going to try and take away from the Rockets. And, they'll give them back something, but it's going to be a fight because they know that the Rockets have a lot. But in a lot of ways, the Rockets hold the upper hand because they have these young superstars. They have these picks, and they just were the number 2 team in the Western Conference. And Rafael Stone gets the call, hey, we want to trade with you. All right, well, we were just the number 2 team in the Western Conference, so you better have us a good deal. That's what it's going to come down to. And, we'll see what happens. I do think there will be a trade, but I'm thinking it's not going to be as big of a blockbuster as people are talking about. But I know that the NBA is crazy, and as I said in previous videos, you never thought Luka Doncic was going to be a Laker 6 months ago. You never know what any of these Rockets players could be in 4 or 5 months when the next season gets started. We appreciate you watching here on Rockets Digest. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button. Obviously, you made it to the end of the video. You enjoy something about the content, and we're going to get you more of it. So subscribe today. We'll have more on the coverage of your H-Town team. But for now, Rockets fans, we'll see you next time. Peace out.